Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Kirklees Council Children's Scrutiny Panel on Monday, the 16th of December 2019. Just do a brief round of introductions before we go into the agenda. So I'm Andrew Marchington, Chair of the panel.
Helen Kilroy, Governance Officer.
Richard Smith, Councillor and Panel Member.
Amanda Pinnock, Councillor and Panel Member.
Paul Davis, Councillor and Panel Member.
Martin Wilby, Senior Strategic Manager for Education, Places and Access.
Joanne Sanders, Service Director for Learning and Early Support.
Good morning, I'm Julie Bragg, I'm the Head of Corporate Parenting and Children Care and Care Leavers Service.
Good morning, I'm Elaine McShane, Service Director for Family Support and Child Protection.
Tom Brailsford, Service Director for Resources Improvement and Partnerships.
I'm Viv Kendrick, I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People Services.
Carol Patterson, Cabinet Member for Learning, Aspiration and Communities.
Paul Harris, Children's Service Improvement Manager.
Lovely, thank you. We've also got Councillor Alison Munro, who's one of the councillors of Almonbury Ward, in attendance. So we're going to do a slight change to the agenda. We're going to bring the item on Almonbury Community School forward from item 9 to item 7, and then the rest of the agenda will be follow on as written. We'll go on to number of an age of children in care after that. We've had apologies from Tony Bradley, and I think record Dale O'Neill's apologies as well. She might not have been here this morning. Minutes of the previous meeting, pages 1 to 12. Those an accurate record of that meeting in November. Yeah, we're fine with that. Okay, thank you. I don't think there's any particular matters. We've got two sets, the 11th and the 8th. I think all the matters arising will either be dealt in this meeting or future meetings. Have any members of the panel got an interest to declare on items? That's none. This is a meeting in public, so everybody's welcome to attend should they wish to do so. If at any point we feel there is something we need to discuss in private, we'll have to move the relevant motion to exclude the public, but I can't imagine, not envisaging that happening today. We've got no notification of deputations or petitions. Public question time. Alison, have you got any questions?
No, I've just really come to hear what's going to be said on Almonbury Community School. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay. So we're going to now go to item 9, which is the update on Almonbury Community School. Thank you.
Okay, so I thought it was worthwhile just stating that the last formal report the panel had was in October, earlier this year, the 11th of October, and this was pre the decisions made by the school's adjudicator, so you received verbal updates at that time and since about the decisions of the school's adjudicator, and in particular you had a verbal update about the offer of the option for parents to preference one of the 3 partnership schools, King James's, Netherhall and Newsham. So contained in the report today, it confirms some of those things that you've had a verbal update on previously. Yeah. There is a further update, a verbal update today that's not included in the report, so which I think people will be really interested in. So on Friday, we released some communications to parents and other stakeholders, which confirmed that every parent who has made a preference for one of those 3 schools has now had the confirmation of an offer of a place for the school in which they made a preference for. There were a very small number of non-returns that we continue to contact, but in the absence of contact with them, we have allocated them a place at their catchment area school. We'll continue to try and have a conversation with them, and if they want something different, we can look at that. There are also a small number of families who are engaged at the moment in a different process. So, for instance, an in-year application to a different school, or they might be waiting for an appeal to be heard, and various things of that nature where they're just not at the moment in a place where they want to receive an offer of a school place from one of the 3 schools. So we are tracking all these families, and when that situation, if it changes, and they don't receive a place at a different school, we will ensure that they are offered one that's appropriate for them. It's also worth highlighting that whilst we've issued previously some outline information about support for school uniforms, in the letters that have gone out and the communications that went out on Friday, there is more detail about that. So the support scheme will be the issue of a voucher to each family that they can take to one of the uniform suppliers based in Huddersfield, and they will be able to get free items that are the branded items, if you like, that are associated with the school that they are going to. Many of the other school uniform items are very generic across all schools. So that all really focuses on those parents that are part of the well-managed transition process. Of course, some parents have moved their children already to a different school using the in-year process. We will also be writing to them shortly about their uniform support offer, which will be a financial contribution to uniform that they will have already purchased, given that they've started a school. So that's our next job. I think the other update that's worthy of highlighting is the admissions consultation process. So previously we'd said that we would be consulting on it through the normal annual admission process. That is the changes to the catchment areas, so that King James, Netherhall and Newsham all take part of Almonbury High School's previous catchment area. So it matches the temporary arrangements that are in place that were approved by the adjudicator and normalises those arrangements into the future. So that consultation process has started, and we've communicated that to stakeholders that are particularly interested in the Almonbury position, and they are welcome to comment on that consultation. And that will be taken into account when decisions are made in the new year in the normal process.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for that update. Panel members, got any questions for Martin or on the report? Fine. Okay. That's great. Interesting. Good to hear that you're tracking. Those that parents that of children that you haven't responded. You're following that up. Hopefully, that we get to find out exactly what situations are. I think the other thing that had come up, and it's good to hear about the contributions towards uniform. I think that was brought up by ward councillors at the time. Issues around transport, I hope probably won't be a big issue, but has there been any conversations about transport or needs for transport needs for some of the children?
Yes, so I'm aware of 3 cases where parents have requested support with transport. In each of those cases, they are pupils that have already moved to a different school, so parents have taken them out of the what I refer to as the managed transition process. But we're looking at each one of those cases individually. Obviously, our focus has been on getting this information out, but we've not lost sight of that, and that again will be one of the next jobs to really dig down deeply and look at the situation of each family.
Okay. Right, thank you, Martin. Right, so if there are no other questions, then thank you for the update. We'll keep an eye on that in panel meetings and at leading member briefings and briefings with officers. We'll keep that, so thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we will now return to item 7 on the main agenda, starting at page 15, number and age of children in care. Right, is that Julie? Yeah, lovely.
So at the end of October 2019, our children in care remained static from the month before at 641. Since that time, we've had a slight rise, and we currently stand at 651. So we've had a slight rise in the numbers of children coming into care. Yeah. As you can see from the report, the main age group is the largest cohort of children are between the ages of 11 and 15. We continue to reduce our numbers of children placed more than 20 miles away from Kirklees, which is a good prospect. This time last year we were looking at well over 100. We now currently stand at 78. Some of those children actually want to remain in the areas that they live in, and particularly when they come a little bit older, towards the age of 16, they formed friendships and networks surrounding that area. So in some situations, children will choose to stay in the area that they've been living. So as you see from the report, I don't think there's much more that I can add to that. We continue obviously to monitor closely the children that are brought into care through our senior managers, and in all situations it is an appropriate decision that those children come into the care of the local authority.
Right. Thank you, Julie. So it's good to hear, there's some stability in the current position. We, as a panel, also have conversations with officers about the other information regarding the looked after children. So there might be some questions, not necessarily for yourself, Julie, but for other officers who are here. So if we could, are there questions on the report as presented, or other items members want to raise? Paul.
Not specifically on the report, but as you referred to, Chair, we've had some informal discussions on a number of issues which we've talked about before. One was around certainly placement, stability, and social worker stability, and that was something that strongly had come through from looked after children themselves. And also another thing which, like reference to, is an issue that we picked up from the reports you provided around the initial child protection meetings, which have dropped significantly in August, September, October, in terms of meeting the 15-day target. So if you could comment on both those areas, that would be appreciated.
I can comment about the placement stability. It is a small number of children in terms of the numbers of children in care, and often there is more children that have more complex needs. What we do within the service to prevent placement breakdown is if we have indications from a carer that things are not going as well as we were hoping, then we have a stability meeting. We pull together a stability meeting which actually looks at involving our placement support team. So we look at actually how and what support we can offer to carers to prevent that placement from breaking down. And often what we do find is a lot of our breakdowns for children are sometimes our older children that came into care quite late and often struggle to live with another family. So we're also currently at the moment looking at our placement support team and reviewing the service that we offer and how we can improve that. And then moving forward, we'll be looking at our MST and how we'll be able to use some of the model of the MST to support carers to prevent those placements from breaking down.
Thanks. And I think we're aware certainly there's a lot of work going on. Be interested as well, we didn't actually pick this up in our informal meeting, but have we got examples elsewhere in the country of, if you like, best practice in terms of improvement, placement stability and social worker stability? Is this something that we can use or learn from elsewhere?
In terms of placement stability, we're probably in a better place than a lot of other local authorities. So although we do have that small number of young people that actually do present some interesting scenarios, actually our figure for placement stability is in a good place. So I think there are things that we could demonstrate to the local authorities about the work that we do in Kirklees to ensure children, wherever possible, remain within a family setting. That's not always possible, but that's usually our aim.
Thanks. Excellent. Thank you.
And in terms of the initial child protection conferences, we're aware that we've got an issue in terms of the performance reducing, particularly over the past 3 months, and there are a number of reasons for that. We're currently looking into that in a detailed piece of work, but one of them being that automatically from strategy meetings, there was a system where initial child protection conferences were booked automatically regardless of whether they were needed or not, which actually clogged up the system, if you like, in terms of the availability of slots for those conferences, which has been one of the issues. A number of the other issues are around barriers to getting people to engage in the initial child protection conferences, whether that's availability of partner organisations, whether that's availability of the reports. So we are doing a focused bit of work looking at that at the moment. We are aware we're below regional and national average. The other thing I think it's worth stressing is of those children who were out of the 15-day time frame for initial child protection conferences, all of them still had social care oversight, so we're still being overseen by a social worker. But we are aware of the issue in terms of performance, and we'll be doing a focused piece of work to look into why that isn't improved, that performance.
Thanks very much. And I think the discussion we had a little while ago focused on that as well. And as I mentioned, it's something we'll pick up, I know, later on. One of the visits that we went to Northrop Hall, I've got a sort of similar issue in the sense, I know it's not exactly the same, but this, the contacts that are coming in are creating a significant backlog. And so it'd be interesting to see, that work that you're doing and how, whether or not lessons from that could help as well with Northrop Hall as well, go forward. Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to do some feedback on the visits we've done during the work programme, so thank you. Right. So thank you for the update on looked after children. Any other panel members got any questions at this point? Right. So thank you for that. So we'll move on to item 8, the Children's Service Improvement Journey 2019.
Good morning. Again,
Morning,
I'm going
Elaine.
to start on this. Members will have sight of a report that was actually prepared for our annual conversation for Ofsted. And the approach we took for our annual conversation was a whole children's services rather than simply children's social care. And I think that's a recognition in terms of how we are working closely together to make sure children receive the right type of support at the right time, depending on what their circumstances are. I mean, what this followed on from was the June inspection for children's social work services that moved the local authority from being inadequate to requires improvement to be good. What was very clearly seen in that inspection that children in Kirklees are safe, and that was a key priority for us. What we have had in terms of the journey is continual political support and investment, and I think that's been really important across all services, and I would say political challenge as well, because that's equally as important. What we've done in terms of moving towards the next stage of our journey, which we're aiming towards outstanding, is there's been additional leadership capacity put into the service, so a new service director, and then also service managers and team managers in different parts of the service. We're continuing to improve and embed our restorative practice approach, that very much about building relationships and working with people and supporting people to actually work with us. And alongside our improvement journey as well, we're delivering our business as usual, and lots of things that have actually come to light in terms of addressing emerging challenges around gangs, knife crime, and some of the national headlines around unregulated accommodation for children that are looked after. I will stress that actually that is not an issue for children in Kirklees. We do not use unregulated accommodation. So we've done a full report into that. And now Children and Young People's Partnership and the shared themes in terms of placing children at the centre of the decisions that we take and keeping children safe. So members may have questions about the narrative that we presented to Ofsted. Happy to answer questions, either myself, Joe or Tom. We're almost like a trio. Can't be a double act. I don't know what the next thing is, but we would be a double act with an extra. Oh.
Right, thank you, Elaine. Panel members, questions on the improvement journey? All right. Richard?
I haven't got much question. I suppose my concern is the bit you mentioned about knife crime and gangs. I just wondered whether there was any sort of further sort of tangible, how well are we doing with that? I suppose what my concern is that I can see a lot of stuff reported in the press. Is it getting better? Is it because there was a lot of high-profile arrests and we've got a bit of a power vacuum now? But when's that bit going to end? That's why I'm sort of trying to see a trajectory of. I spoke to Richard Smith in the youth offending team, and I was really impressed with the people there, what they were doing, and it looks like the team is doing a really good job. I suppose what worries me is there still seems to be a lot of gangs in Huddersfield area and Kirklees, and is there something? Is the light at the end of a tunnel? I suppose is the question. An honest answer, really. I'm not trying to have a dig at anybody. I just think how are we doing, really?
I think if you look back to the Ofsted report, what they said certainly about children and young people, and our services are working really well with children and young people to actually address this and divert them away from some of this activity. And that's really important because you have to find other alternatives to ensure that they're supported and they've got aspirations elsewhere. And Ofsted recognised that the nature of the work that we were doing was really positive and innovative, I can't even say the word, so innovation. The other thing that we've actually really just been successful with is the Youth Endowment Fund, and we've secured finance for the next 2 years to develop an MST team for exploitation, and that will work with young people at multi-systemic therapy. And this is we're working with 3 other local authorities in terms of, because it's almost like a research project, see if it works in practice. And I think the fact that we've been chosen demonstrates that people see that we're being creative in terms of how we work with young people, work with our partners. So lots of conversations almost on a daily basis with our police colleagues. We've identified our young people that we see that are on the periphery of gangs, and it's really important when I say the periphery, so we identify them early and really look to identifying the right type of support. I'm leading a piece of work around a youth practice model. So looking how we bring together, we have different services. So we have a youth intervention team, we have the youth offending team, and we have a risk and vulnerability team. And actually they work with the same young people. So what we're wanting to do is develop one service that actually identify a vulnerable young person, and then you can very quickly identify the best person to support them in terms of making sure they have more positive outcomes. So lots of activity. I think things are changing, but like with everything, things do take time.
I think it's also worth saying that I was at a regional meeting, I think it was last week or the week before, where the Police and Crime Commissioner was there in terms of the Violence Reduction Unit. I don't know if anyone's come across this yet, that was presented at the Health and Wellbeing Board last month, where there is going to be a multi-agency regional team put in place with the aim of reducing violent crime, including knife crime, which is going to do things like have some of the services like in the Glasgow model, the people at A&E kind of trying to intervene early and divert away from that kind of thing. So I think there's a renewed strategy, a West Yorkshire-wide strategy that looks to be a bit more focused in reducing knife crime.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy with what you said, both of you. Yeah, I mean, I just come from this point of view. It's about 30 years since I spent loads of my life in Birkby, and it was a totally different place then. It's not that long ago I was going around Huddersfield on a Friday and Saturday night drinking, and something's changed in the not too distant past. And now, I've heard what you're saying, and it's the right thing to do. So yeah.
I think I will just comment on, I was chair, in fact, the Bury South asked me to chair the Violent Crime Task Group when I was a member of the Community Safety Partnership. And there's actually lots of examples of good practice that Kirklees used to be an example of that, working in partnership with West Yorkshire Police and Health and everybody, and actually revisiting some of that. And it was violent. We did, looking around what was happening in the town centre, with actually work going on in schools with young people. There was the young people service for doing all that. So we know what works around violence. Obviously knife crime is an issue. There's all sorts of things around that, but there's elements of good practice we can put into place. And if we're revisiting that and together and working about that, we're going to keep, particularly keep our children and young people safer, but also communities are going to feel safer as well. So it goes in cycles, Richard, I think, but we need to get to that point where we all feel safer, particularly our young people. Yeah. Good. Right, any other questions, comments? Paul?
Probably just following on, I guess, from what we just talked about. I think for me, a common thread with a lot of the issues we talk about is the early intervention, isn't it? And the issues we've got in early intervention, and issues children get with attachment and all things we come from that. So it'd be interesting to hear if, in terms of what we're looking to do in the next 12 months or 18 months, what are the key areas that we're investigating in that early intervention side of things.
Thank you. Yeah, we too recognise that we want to be able to do the preventative work. It does correlate when you look at some of the statistics that we're looking at and the improvement board's looking at in terms of the contacts that come to our social care front door and how many of those convert then into social work action. And at the moment, the percentage that converts is quite low. So what that suggests is we're having lots and lots of contacts, but they could be supported much earlier on. So from an early support partnership point of view. So working in conjunction with the Safeguarding Children's Partnership, we have a task and finish group, and we want to be able to, I suppose, grow capacity and confidence, both at the front door, so investing and putting some additional capacity from early support in the front door, as well as working with our partners in local areas so that they have a greater confidence to be able to offer some support earlier on in the problem rather than needing to seek advice necessarily in the front door from social care. They'll be able to seek advice from early support. So there's an awful lot of work that we're intending to plan over the next 2 to 3 months, and we hope to see then statistically a real shift. So it might be something that we want to bring some more detail about.
Can I just...
Yeah,
sorry, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah,
If you follow up and I'll bring Richard back in.
Very, very quick. Thanks very much. And just to re-emphasise, I think that how important that work is, because I think we all know, you know, if we're trying to resolve the problem when our children are 15 and 16 and 17, then we really are struggling, and the more likely we're going to get into sort of punitive things with those children, which we don't want to get. So thank you very much, and look forward to hearing more about that going forward.
Sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you. Really briefly, my son's 9. He came home from school a couple of weeks ago, and he'd had somebody from Kirklees talking to him about gangs and knives, and so I was really chuffed to hear that. And he got it. He took it on board, and he gets it. So whatever that's. Whoever's initiated that's absolutely the right thing.
I just want to add something to what Joe said as well about what we deployed over the summer with some detached youth workers, and that's very much about getting out into the communities and knowing who our young people are that are out and about and what their experiences are, to shape actually some of our thinking and the services that we provide. And there's an whole range of things that we're looking at for a youth model. And so I think it will be really worthwhile to bring some of that back, because we will be creating some more detached youth work, recognising that actually the nature of those individuals is that they do engage with young people, and the young people's voice is really important, because we can't second guess what their thinking is. And, you know, times change and provision is very different these days. So we will, I think, have something to bring forward in the very near future.
Right, well, thank you for the update report. It's obviously, there's really great progress being made. I think the thing that we're looking at, and it's that ongoing thing about our role, about looking at partnership working, contribution to those, looking at the data that we've, you know, this is what we say we're going to do, how do we know we've done what we say we're going to do? We've been, you know, we'll hear in the update on the work programme about us visits, going actually get, rather than just sitting here and listening, getting out and about and seeing what's going on. I think the other thing you've picked up, that really good to hear about children's voice, but we need to make sure that, and if Dale was here, she would be, everything we look at, actually the lived experience of young people and their reflection on what's happening. I think we need to that needs to be part of everything that we do here. So thank you for those updates on that. That's lovely. Okay. Right. Item 10. We talked about the update on the work programme. So I think panel members have got. If we do some feedback on some of the visits and observations we've done, and then I think we've got some ideas from some other things we'd like to do. So, Paul, you want to do an update on the?
Well, I mentioned Northrop Hall, so I'll start with that really, because we had 2 visits, but Northrop Hall, I think both visits, my overall comment is it really showed the value of us as a scrutiny panel going out and actually seeing what's happening on the ground. For me, it's absolutely essential, and I'm really glad that that's the way we're working and going forward. I know from the chair's perspective, we'll carry on doing that. One of the things which was impressive, again, to see it on the ground, was the teamwork and the multi-agency approach. And you get a sense when you go into offices or environments of where there's a culture of working together and collaboration, and certainly in Northrop Hall, that came over to me strongly talking to people, across the patch. What is a difficulty for them clearly is, are the backlogs, that they've got, the 300 plus that they're dealing with, and obviously the concern around, are we missing people through that, and all the efforts that are going around to try and ensure that's not the case. But linked to that, because we talked, myself and Chair asked questions about how they could make that more efficient, and what was interesting was they were saying that in one sense they want to pick up as many people as they can, because they act as an advisory service, particularly to families, even if they don't refer them onwards. So it's not straightforward, but it clearly is something I think that we'd be interested in looking at going forward, because with that number of backlogs, then there's always that risk, isn't it, that we're missing people, or we're not missing people quite often, but not getting people to support quick enough. I think that's probably more likely.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, some of what we talked about and observed, we're not going to be able to share at this point, but we will obviously bring those.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into detail.
No.
Overall view.
Yeah.
I sat down as well with one of the team for about 30 minutes while they were dealing with the call, and again, it was I was impressed. The systems that we've got in place, which back up the people, are very, very good, very quick and easy to use. And because I've seen systems in the past in previous careers which are absolutely cumbersome, so I think that is really good. I think the overall sense I got was, again, and this was the same on our first visit, was the amount of care, compassion and professionalism that was shown was impressive in there. So I think it's not a secret. There are increasing demands. We want to look at how we can help with that. At the same time, ensuring that we don't take away that support that they provide in the wider family sense as well. So yeah, I think that was the Northrop Hall. For the multi-agency meeting that we went to, pretty similar, so I'm not going to say the same comments about the teamwork, and that was impressive. I think for both visits, what I was impressed with as well was the, if you like, a learning culture of people looking at what was going on a real-time basis and taking lessons and learning from that and applying it fairly rapidly. I thought that seemed to be, me, one of the most impressive aspects of both visits, that it wasn't a case of we'll log that and we'll have a look at it in 6 months' time. It was, we'll take that forward to the next meeting, we'll have a look at that and see how we can apply the lesson from that particular case. It was a constant learning and self-review, and also, particularly in multi-agency, not being afraid to question. So there's a confidence. I think it goes back to comments we made earlier about there was a confidence amongst professionals to actually question decisions that had been taken previously, re-examine them, and then to go forward, which is what we want. And somebody said, I think a great comment from one of the team there, was we have to be curious. We have to be more curious. There's this constant curiosity. So I think that fits into all of it, and I think those words really please me. Is just this constant curiosity, always looking at stuff. So that would be my view in it. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for the invitation to both. It was really useful. Lots of positives going on. I think it was useful also to pick up some of the things we want to look at, and there might be some other questions. Again, looking at with multi-agency meetings and multi-agency working about are the right partners at the particular meetings without too many. You know, it's not a particularly good use of time if people are at a meeting when they don't need to be there. So making sure the right people are there. So actually we picked up some elements of that in the observations. There's probably some ongoing, work to look at in terms of that. I think the principle of actually seeing people working in situ is really good from our point of view. So it does corroborate some of the information we're getting through in the reports. And I think the other thing I think we appreciated from, I had a quite a long chat with Dale about things. I'm actually looking at anonymised case studies, which really gives us, which I understand. Ofsted look through case files, we've heard that time and time again. For us to do that, so we can look at some of the detail of what you're going through to make sure you get the best outcomes for that. So that was it has, I think, the panel, those that went, we found it really useful. I think in conversation, we thought about some other parts of the work programme where we would find it useful for visits. So Amanda, do you want to come in at that stage?
Yeah, so really following on from the discussions that we had earlier on about early intervention, about deterring young people away from criminality and gangs, and Kirklees are doing some wonderful work, so thank you so much for that. But what I'm particularly interested in is really care leavers and the youth offending team, and what happens at the stage where young people really venture out into the world and try to succeed and be responsible adults. What sort of work are we doing with those young people? So we talked about, for example, attending the corporate board, because I understand there is a piece of work that's corporate parenting board. There is some work that's being done in respect of that, and also the youth offending team. Looking at what work's been done, the prevention aspect in that respect, and the package of care and support that Kirklees Council's putting in. I can see from the report that there are personal advisors who work very closely with young people. I think it's 100%, I think it says in the report, of personal advisors working with young people, and their voice being captured and how they're developing a programme with them. So I'd be interested to know what that looks like and the outcomes, how successful we've been in terms of getting young people, into employment, into education, into housing, to allow them to be independent, self-sufficient, and have the skills that they need to succeed in life. So for me, that's my particular area of interest.
So I think Richard, you're a member of corporate parenting. You're a corporate parent for us, so there's that crossover. We're invited to corporate parenting board as chair's invited as an observer. It would be really useful when we're looking at care leavers, and the point that Amanda, if we could, that can be particularly highlighted, and actually, if Amanda wants to go along to that, and to that, Richard, you want to?
There is crossover. We've got the chair here as well, who does a grand job. So there is definitely a crossover, and I've spent time with the youth offending team as a result of the corporate parent board, as opposed to this one. And I share the comments that have just been made. I'm really passionate about how the people who are leaving care and the criminal justice system out, because that's the big risk, isn't it? That's the bit where they're at biggest risk of getting sucked into the wrong sort of crowds, if you like. And when we're as a body responsible for these young people, and to me it's the biggest responsibility that Kirklees has got. Those are the what you've got to do is you've got to replace as much as you can, and it's not possible to do it, but you've got to try your best to replace as much as possible what they should be having at home when they're not getting.
Just because this is seasonal, and it is about our care leavers, because at our number 11, so that is a drop in. Actually, on the civic one, we've got our Christmas dinner for care leavers on Wednesday, but also for the first time this year, we're actually doing a Christmas Day Christmas dinner. And that's in association with the LEMCC Foundation, and we've got a charity supporting us that will provide a Christmas lunch for up to 50 young people on Christmas Day, that will provide them with all. There's been lots of activity, if you look on Twitter, around gifts, you know, so that are personalised as well to each young person. So, it is that being as broad and as creative we possibly can be, and keeping, I think what we have got a really, really positive record about is actually keeping in touch with our young people, even to the point where they're saying thank you but no thank you. We still leave the door open and say for any time come back. So we do try to be as creative as we can.
A possibility of, visits or conversations with youth offending team Yeah,
there are two things. You can visit the team, but also there is a youth offending board where you'd get oversight of all the activity. That's chaired by a senior police officer, so very independent, but actually does. And again, that's a board that is about challenge as well. And we can let you have the dates of that, and if that would be something you'd like to attend.
Any other comments members want to make on the work programme? Right at the moment. Fine. Lovely. Viv, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I don't mean to extend your meeting longer than it needs to be. One of the things that was mentioned earlier was MST, multisystemic therapy, and it really connects very much with both the exploitation issues and about early help and intervention. And I think for this panel to really be able to challenge or look into possibly either a presentation about MST here at the panel or a visit to the team. I mean, I paid a visit to the team last year and sat in their sort of case conferencing where the manager gives feedback and support to the individuals, and it's incredibly interesting, and particularly with the new investment around knife crime, etc. With MST, I think it really would help the panel to understand and know what the team does.
Thank you for that. We'll have conversations about getting that. That's lovely. Right, I think that's almost the end of the formal agenda. I need to remember, in terms of apologies, Councillor Paul White did give his apologies for this meeting at the previous meeting, so my apologies for not remembering that at the beginning. So, thank you very much everybody for their attendance and their contributions and their questions. The date of the next formal meeting is the 17th of January 2020 at 11 a.m. Thank you very much.